Happy Tuesday, everybody. Welcome to the Tuesday Live. Today we have special guest Porterhouse from Porterhouse and Teal. I'm on with John Willis and I'm Nicole Sauce. And part of why I asked Porterhouse to come on is in the last couple weeks, you woke up one day, logged into your YouTube account and realized your monetization had just been turned off. And I heard about that and I thought, well, that's terrible because it's not like you're nefariously, telling people how to be the Oklahoma bomber or something. And you're sharing practical experiences on how you are permaculturing and homesteading your place. And how did that feel when that happened?
Well, actually what happened is since I am such a new channel, I had never actually reached the minimum thresholds for monetization. So my channel had not been monetized. And that was one of the things that I decided upon starting this journey back sometime in October, that was going to be a goal of mine. And it was a goal that I set out at the start of this year to monetize the channel. And I reached that goal of 4,000 hours, 4,000 watch hours, and at least 1,000 subscribers in February. And I applied for the first time. And upon doing so, I wound up getting a pretty prompt response from YouTube saying that the channel was not eligible. It had been denied monetization based upon the fact that the channel had harmful content on it. And so upon clicking on harmful content, it directs me to something else. And I was expecting that it would say, hey, this is what the harmful content is, make it go away or fix it or whatever. And it just said your channel focuses on controversial issues. And so I sought to kind of go through the process of trying to get an answer for this. And I reached out to YouTube or Google support on a couple different occasions. And I thought that I was making I guess some headway with it. But I wound up reapplying again prior to the last Self-Reliance Festival. And I was actually in Tennessee when I got notification on the second time that I'd been denied yet again. And they hadn't given me any, direct answer. So I guess to answer your question is, it just left me with a lot of questions, really. I mean, more questions than answers, So,
showing people how your chickens make compost is totally controversial, dude.
Yeah.
Or how you can, I thought your video on finding water on the hillside, that was pretty freaky, man.
Yeah.
Pretty freaky.
Yeah. It's a little edgy. Yeah, I don't know, man. It's a really weird thing. The whole YouTube experience, because they're in the business of content creation, and so you think they would be a little bit more responsive to content creators. However, I did, upon applying the third time, I wound up finding out probably about 5 or 6 days ago that the channel had been monetized.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. I got monetized, right?
He got monetized, changing nothing on his channel.
So somebody, a real person, finally actually probably looked at it, because they never will tell you. They send you to this very vague, broad community guidelines. Like, we got a channel strike and had a video pulled for episode 19, Pulling the Thread podcast. And when we watched it, there wasn't, we had spoken about COVID during 2019 and how in Temecula, well, I'm not even going to say it. This conversation might get yours pulled right now, but they actually removed our video. So we went through, looked at it, put it up on Rumble, and then edited out that part. And it was literally a couple sentences speaking about 2019. And now it's up and it's fully monetized and the video's back. There's not a rhyme or reason to it, and they never will tell you.
Yeah, I think that's kind of the I don't know if I suppose it is frustrating when you're going through it. Now that the channel is monetized, I have some opinions as to what this whole process has been. But leading into it, because they don't tell you, you're forced to just speculate. You're forced to just wonder, well, is it this or is it that, or is it something nefarious? But even at this point, like you said, John, they just don't bother telling you. They what they do is they give you links of places that you can go to review all these policies that they have that are very broad, they're very sweeping, and don't give you any specific answers. And that's really all that I was asking, was just, hey man, like if there's a problem with one of my videos or a couple of them, let me know what they are. And then that way I'll know not to do it again. Right. And take that one down. I'm cool with that. It's their platform. And I've said that repeatedly. We're on their platform. And so they have the right to set the rules, and you either abide by the rules or you don't. I've tried to the best of my ability to play by their rules and not talk about things necessarily that they want you to talk about.
But we don't know what their rules. You don't know. There's not a, this is the rules, right? So they just changed all the firearm stuff maybe a month or two ago. And what it comes down to is you can still show guns shooting on YouTube, but you can't have instructional videos. And what the big thing that's demonetizing pulling videos is, you cannot show the insertion of a magazine, and you cannot show installation, putting on a suppressor or taking a suppressor off. You can have the suppressor, you can show shooting, you cannot show the mag. If you watch our last 20 videos that have guns in them, you don't see it going in, and that's how those videos are up there. That's what those guidelines are. And we got that from talking to enormous YouTube creators that are doing gun stuff. And that's what it came down to. Those guys at that level have a person that they talk to on the phone. We don't have that.
Right.
And at the rate we're at, we won't ever be at that level, right? It used to be 1,000 viewers to get monetized. Now it's 4,000. Everything has changed. Just have it, have all your stuff. I think you do. It dumps all to Rumble and whatever the other one you and Jack
Odyssey.
Nicole is.
Odyssey. Yeah.
But Rumble's really up and coming, and they're really trying to squash Rumble. Like Rumble is eating everybody else. That's what all those, you're seeing all these, the Secure Act and all that. It's not about TikTok. It's about TikTok killing all those other companies.
It's going to kill Facebook.
Oh, Facebook's pretty well dead. But I mean, if you look at the video content that I posted yesterday, we posted the exact same content on TikTok, Facebook, and Instagram and YouTube. Facebook has the most interaction with it.
Yeah, it's interesting, these different platforms, they're all kind of scrambling to compete for everybody's attention, because there's just so, as you've said before, there's just so many hours in a day. And how do people consume, their information? How do they get it? Where do they get it? And they're all scrambling to try to knock the others down in some regard and garner people's attention. And so I understand the competition aspect of it, but it's I think one of those things we're going to see moving into the future. That bar is just going to keep getting moved, further and further and further. Like you say, at one point you could talk about this. Now it's, you can only show this. And then at some point you won't be able to talk about those things at all. And so it's just kind of an interesting, progression that we see in the media landscape. And I'm very new to it. I mean, I was on Instagram probably for like 12 years now. And I wound up having a pretty decent presence on Instagram with a different niche, which was athletics. And, I grew my channel to like over 10,000 people. And that wasn't even something I really tried to do. It just kind of was organic at the time, because Instagram at that time was somewhat a newer platform. And it was actually a very cool platform. But over the years, I've watched that platform decline, and I've watched it try to be what some of these other channels are doing by the things that they're adding, because they realize, hey, just showing cool pictures of sunsets and fucking food that people are cooking isn't going to cut it. So they're trying to like position themselves. But it's just interesting to watch kind of how things are evolving, and it'll be interesting to see where things go in the future.
We just have to. We know what it is, right? So we're aware of that. Do your bland stuff on YouTube, do a live, for instance, and then do a live on Rumble. If you look at what Tim Pool's doing, they go from 7 to 9 with their guest. And then they're like, hey, if you want to see the real thing and the things we couldn't say, that's over. And then they're on Rumble and it's $5 to join. And there's way more people on Rumble than there is on YouTube, but they're still making, like, their monetization is over $1 million a month on YouTube for their conversation that they have on there. And he puts a ton of other content up, but he's $1 million a month just on YouTube. But when you go over to Rumble, it's all completely uncensored. Like, I can't even say, I can't even speak the way I speak, right? Every product I make says made in the motherfucking USA. But if we say, I think 3 times in a video, if the word fuck is in there, my videos are unmonetized. They don't give a shit that they're there, but they pull my monetization. We don't make shit for monetization on YouTube anyways. We just use it, for other things as a stepping stone to other places.
Yeah. No, I totally get that. It's one of those things that I look at it like, I'm not going to be paying my bills per se from this, but it is a passive form of income, and in any way that you can make income in any form it builds a level of freedom into your life. Now, granted, that's going through a third party in YouTube. It's not like you're the one that's controlling how that money is coming in. But at the same time, if you're going to be on a platform, I think that you should be getting something for your efforts if you're putting out content in a way that people are, getting some value for. So, again, that was my goal in doing that. And it largely was spurred by, hearing the content creation talk that Tim gave at the first Self-Reliance Festival that I went to. He got up and talked about content creation and doing these sorts of things. And that's one of the reasons why I said, well, you know what? We've been doing this stuff for a while. Why shouldn't we go out and share that with some people? And we've been able to do that. And it's been, we've had some people have received the channel well. So I'm grateful for that, because as I said last night, there's so many people, their attention can be distracted in so many different ways. And if you can get any of their attention to be directed toward you, that's a big win, really. And yeah.
So Andrew says, I love how unmonetized just means they keep the revenue obtained over your content and don't share it with you.
Yep, that's exactly what it means. And the YouTube thing, we're not making money from YouTube, right? Your money comes from when they click the Amazon link, or when they use the Harvest Right or the EMP Shield. And when you build the audience, people that you want to do business with will start to send you products. And when you do real reviews on the products, the real guys show up, and give you better products, and then you get a piece of that. So we know that we're not making money from YouTube, but we're making money because of YouTube. If you look at Off the Ranch, for instance, Matt's channel, Demolition Ranch and Off the Ranch, he will, in the middle of a video, roll right into like some alarm pad system, some home alarm system. And he's so good at it, you don't realize that you're watching a paid commercial, right? A little 2-minute commercial. He's just built it into what he's doing in the video. And those guys pay him a sponsorship in addition to click-through marketing. So he's making millions of dollars every month, just like Grand Thumb and those guys, the bigger YouTube channels. They make money. I was sitting just the other day and I overheard it. I don't remember who it was. It was somebody, I think, at your event, Nicole.
Yeah.
And they were saying that they're getting paid $5,000 a month from some company that they do kind of little ad reads on their YouTube. I don't remember. I overheard it though, and I thought, there it is, right there. That's exactly what I'm always talking about.
I don't know who that was either, but I remember hearing that. So.
One of the things that bothered me, quite honestly, was that they started running ads on my channel back in like 2019, right? And they're doing that to people who have video content out there. So they're running ads, making money on content that you've created, which is fine. It's their platform. But if they're going to put that carrot out there and dangle that carrot that, hey, you need to meet these thresholds in order to reap some of that benefit, that 55-45 split, which it winds up being, then then why not do so? And that was again another reason why I thought, well, if they're making money on my videos, why shouldn't I reap some of that benefit as well? So it was a large driver in my decision to push toward that.
Yeah. Well, and you've made it. You're going to get a big fat check at the end of the month, right?
Yeah. Is that how it works? I don't know if it works that way.
I've not pulled any money. I have $20,000. We just broke $20,000 like 2 weeks ago, and it's sitting in YouTube. I've never even pulled it out. The whole entire 14 years we've been on YouTube, 20 grand is what has been generated from that.
Yeah.
So before I had the Living Free in Tennessee channel, I just had a Nicole Sauce channel, and I was showing homesteading stuff, like how my barrel plucker worked and whatnot. And at that time, the bar was really low to get monetized, so anybody could monetize. And I was looking forward to the day I broke $1 on that channel for years. And I had like 100 followers, but you get like 2 cents off of a video. There's probably still $1.48 sitting on that one right now.
Yeah.
Untapped.
Yeah. You know what I think after kind of analyzing it and watching it, because upon the first time when I was denied, I kind of thought, oh, it's a glitch. You know, I fell through the cracks or whatever. And then when I got denied the second time, I started to, like, I guess really kind of consider, not necessarily buy into, but definitely consider maybe there is some kind of a deeper, more nefarious reason. But to me, it just didn't stand water, because there are very many channels just like this one. There are channels that put out content similar to this one that are monetized. So it on one hand, you kind of go, well, maybe there's an agenda behind what they're doing. They don't want me sharing certain things, or they're trying to squash this particular channel. But what I kind of have come back around to believe is just that this channel is one of so many. I actually did a little bit of kind of looking into it in preparation for what I was going to talk about last night. And these are figures from last year sometime. And there's over 31 million channels on YouTube. Okay.
That seems low.
Yeah, right. There's 31 million channels. And it very well may be. These may be not accurate numbers. There's 12 million that make a part-time living, and there's over 1 million channels that make a full-time living on YouTube alone. There's over 500 hours every minute of content is uploaded to YouTube. Think about that. Every minute, that's how much content is coming into YouTube. So I believe I was overlooked. Somebody probably flagged my channel as being harmful content because I had a few videos that were, in some people's mind, probably controversial, or they didn't like the fact that I had chickens eating meat, or I was, doing certain things, right? And they would probably push harmful content, and that may have flagged the channel in that regard. And given the fact that I didn't change anything on the channel upon reapplication, they more than likely just say, well, there's nothing here, deny again. And then on the third time, I started getting a little bit more direct in my questioning of YouTube, and I started expressing my displeasure via some of the avenues that exist. And one of those avenues was, after you have an interaction with Google support, they always send you a
ribeye cartel.
They want you to review the experience. They want a survey. And I gave them the absolute lowest that they could possibly have. It was extremely dissatisfied with the interaction that I had, because I got zero answers to a very specific and direct question that I was looking for answers. What specifically is the problem? And I went right at it. I was a little bit more direct, and essentially what I think happened is the squeaky wheel got a little bit of grease upon the third time, and they realized, hey, you know what? There isn't really anything here that's that harmful, and I got monetized. That's what I think happened. But I made an issue of it, and I feel that it's important to talk about this, because I know that there's other people who are going to be dealing with this same issue, and probably are dealing with this same issue. And it's just an avenue of education for those that are going through this experience, or may in the future, people that are looking to monetize.
So I hope that you're correct. I would rather believe that. Anybody that's growing a channel and needs eyeballs, we should have some kind of group to where we can put focus and share that out, right? Because I can run your videos on a browser over and over and over, and we can generate, hours of view content easily. And then, maybe if there's a lot of traffic to them, maybe that'll spike the algorithm as well. I know, like on Instagram, we have click-through products. So we have a catalog. It's all through Meta now. But I have posts that have been made on Instagram where we've, linked some product. And then I'll get a note every morning. I have notifications that they've removed some link and it doesn't meet community guidelines. And many of them are from posts from a year or even 2 years ago. And there used to be a review. You'd go in and ask for a review and type out, hey, this is not a medical device, which is what they ding me for a lot of times. This is a belt or this is a wallet. And I always win the review. The review is no longer there. I've not found any way to do it. So now I have to go into Meta, into the full catalog, and request reviews. And every single day I'm requesting reviews on products that are, if a human being had looked at that, they would know that it's not a medical device or it's not a weapon. There was an interview a couple of years ago. It was like on a 2020 or something, right? And they're like, well, who reviews all the reported information from Facebook? And they were farming it out to the Philippines, and they had a couple women on there, and they said, how do you determine? And she goes, look, we see things that are absolutely so heinous, we have to go through them in under 5 seconds and give a yes or a no. And she says, basically, we're all Catholic, and if it's not acceptable in the church, it's not acceptable in my eyes, and we just hit no. And that is the review, which used to be human. I don't believe that much of it at all is human anymore. I feel like you most likely finally got a human being that looked at it and put 10 seconds in and goes, okay, this is silly. We're going to monetize this, man.
Yeah, I agree, because I had numerous interactions. I probably reached out to Google support via the chat feature that they have, and chatted 6 different times with a person that identified themselves as whatever they were. And I always got the feeling that it was an AI generated interaction, right? Yeah. However, I did start to, on my second time, there was like errors put in there. And I thought, computers, they don't make errors. But then I also thought, maybe they're doing that just to make you think, make you think that it's like a human being making an error. But they were just so very sterile and very repetitive. When you ask them a question, they always kind of go back to the same response, and it just leaves you feeling like, yes, I'm talking to a computer. And I think you're going to start seeing more and more of that.
Just the fact that we're having this conversation right now, imagine what it's going to be in just 90 days or 6 months from now.
Yep.
Yeah. Well, here's another experience that I had. We wound up going out to Arizona and booking a room. We were going out there to see our daughter, and we wound up getting this room at this place. And I'm on the phone with this person trying to book a room, and I'm talking, and I'm like, dude, this is a robot. This is super weird. I was tripping out. I'm like, this is crazy. And I actually handed the phone to Rebecca, and she was like, what is going on? But what was pissing me off is the person asked me like what my address was and stuff, and I'm like, you don't need to know where my address is, dude. I'm booking a room. You don't need all this other information. But it was just so weird talking to somebody who was actually a robot. And then when we get to the hotel, right, upon checking in, because we asked this person, we're like, hey, are you going to be at the hotel when we get there? And they're like, oh, yeah. And then when we get there, checking into the hotel, we were asking the lady, and she's like, oh, no, that's a service that we go through. And it's like, it's totally like random, like AI generated thing. And she was pissed because some discrepancy they didn't advise us of that overcharged us and whatever. But you're going to start seeing a lot more of that. So be on the lookout.
Well, Jack had said a decade ago, and I remember seeing it when I was in the old house. So at least over 7 years ago, like Netflix and some of these bigger cable services, when you would talk to customer service and speak to a human being, it was AI generated. You were speaking to a robot then. You could barely tell, but a person who wasn't aware of it wouldn't be able to tell, like, unless you're really looking. And that was over a decade ago.
Yeah. They're getting good with it. I'll tell you that.
Yeah.
I've appreciated the companies that use AI for chat that say that you're speaking to an AI. And then if you go to a person, you go to a person. Because sometimes the AI can help you. But like not knowing and having pretend it's going to meet you at a hotel lobby is a little weird.
Yeah. Yeah.
Moonsprout says the age of Aquarius. I just thought all of those words together were kind of a funny little little grouping. Hey guys on the chat, if you have questions or things you want us to talk about, put your questions in all caps and we will address them. Well, okay, so I thought you were monetized at SRF. So I'm sorry. I got your story wrong at the beginning of this. Because I was like, how could he not be monetized with that many channel followers?
Yeah.
So yeah, that's really super frustrating. I got monetized in the height of the 2020, 2021 COVID stuff on a channel talking about the vaccine with Unloose the Goose episodes streaming, which were not terribly non-controversial the first time I applied. So I don't know why the bot, like, I assume what they're doing is there's some sort of bot analyzing all your stuff. And if it doesn't like something, it flags it. And I had a strike at that point.
Right.
So,
well, the middle of 2019 is when it really started, when they started throttling all of that back. That's when everybody really started talking about this. And you're going to start seeing it the closer we get to the election. You're going to start seeing it ramping up again. It's even starting already on several platforms.
Yeah. Yeah. It's pretty interesting just to watch this whole social media experiment evolve, because it's going to, I think, in the future, take on a whole different view than what we see today, and hopefully there'll be other places that people can go to still have, the interactions that we're having today. But I don't know that to be the case, because I think that there's a small group of elites that are controlling how all of these platforms are and the things that they need to do to conform, to the message.
You have a bunch of billionaires that have come out and said that they're supporting Biden, right? Why would anybody support Biden? They would support Biden because they pull the strings. And if anybody other than the administration that is in there right now, they're going to cut that off, right? So with the AI stuff, McDonald's just stood up multiple restaurants that don't have any human being interaction in them at all. It's that whole, we programmed everybody with this living wage thing. You've got kids who have never actually worked a difficult job in their life, and they've been programmed that they should get $20 for an entry-level job. You have all these places, you're about to wipe out all these entry-level jobs. John Pugliano spoke about it. Jack has spoken about it for years now, and it's starting to actually happen. So what are those people who have no accomplishment? They don't leave the house. They don't go anywhere. They just sit there. They rely on the government to feed them and to give them entertainment, right? So they're just sitting there, and there is nothing for them to do. They've never even done an entry-level job. And most jobs pay for, qualification and level of skill. But you have a whole group of people right now who have never gained any skill. They're literally not doing anything. And I just sent both of you videos, actually. I saw that, Nicole. I sent it. I don't know if that's actually you, Porterhouse and Teal. There is a Facebook page. I've sent you messages before that have never been read, so I don't know if you actually have that account.
I'm not on Facebook. Does it say that I'm on Facebook?
Yes, somebody is.
You're on Facebook.
Interesting.
But they're not.
I tried to tag him on Facebook, and I was like, they're not there.
No, I don't go on that platform. So that's interesting. Somebody, I had that happen on my other channel too. Somebody had sent me a picture of me, with this wacky name, and it used my imagery, and it was this different name on Instagram. And I was just like, this is weird, but I don't know. It's whatever, I suppose. Yeah.
I had somebody pretend to be Nicole Sauce, and the username was at Nicole Sauce, which I already had on that platform, and it was a 1 instead of an I, and they had it in all caps.
Yeah, they'll set up. I have all kinds of accounts that look just like mine, and they'll share my posts for a month or two, and then they'll go and message people.
Yep.
What's the reason? What do you think the reason is for them doing that?
I think it's to damage me personally on mine. They say pretty heinous shit all over the place. But like I get follows from, like, Donald Trump Jr. follows my page and is interacted a few times. And then I get a message from Donald Trump Jr. and I look and I start scrolling down and there's only a couple weeks worth of content. What they're trying for, I don't know. Probably, hey, donate to my thing or send me money or just fishing. You know, Jack said even when you get the videos like, hey, bad news for you, send me $700 because I accessed your webcam and I caught you doing some stuff, you know. Well, obviously that's not happening anyways, but he said don't even interact with them because when you do that line of communication, you might give up one more piece of information.
Yeah.
He said it's highly, highly dangerous. Like, just delete those. Do not interact. Don't do anything with them.
Yeah.
So I've been selling stuff on Facebook Marketplace, and people will immediately ask me for my cell phone number. I'm like, I'm sorry, I don't use a cell phone.
Yeah, nightmare.
Yeah, it's frustrating for sure. What were we going to say, Porterhouse?
No, I don't know if I was going to say anything. I was actually thinking of some other thing where when John was talking, I was just, you know, a lot of, I think you probably get quite a bit of hate. You probably get a lot of trolls. How is it that you deal with trolls?
Man, I used to engage them and make money off of them. And really, I don't anymore. I block them as fast as I can. If somebody comes on and says something that irritates me, I'll usually skip it and then come back to it. And if it still irritates me, I usually remove them 100%. I literally remove all access. We have had people in the past that would create brand new accounts with the exact same pictures to say the same nasty stuff on YouTube. That's died out quite a bit. But I don't entertain it anymore. I don't interact with it. If I've walked away from the computer and it even pops into my head, I come back and block them 100% from my page. And occasionally there's probably guys that I've blocked that actually do interact for real, but I don't know. I don't have the headspace for it. I cannot be sidetracked and derailed from what I'm doing in motion. So I just remove any chance of that happening now.
Yeah, that's a big change from what you used to do before too. Do you know why you made that? Why did you change your mind on that?
Guys very much more successful than myself in business, when I was doing and interacting with that, they're like, dude, just don't interact with it. When you have positivity in your life, you're going to have more positive things happen. And when you operate on negativity, you're going to move more towards that, and it's going to attract more negative things. And I can't prove it to you. I can't explain it to you. But when you operate in that manner, clear cut, white or black, left or right, whatever it is, when you operate in negativity, it's going to let a little bit more negativity seep in there, and it's going to contaminate. It is actually more important for you to remove negative people and negativity from your life, even more important than adding positivity. When you remove all that's negative, things will be better in your life. Things will start to happen. Everything will improve.
What about you, Nicole? How do you deal with the trolls?
I've gone both ways. Mostly I ignore them and I block them. And sometimes I have engaged because it helps get eyeballs, right? I have also been reached out quietly behind scenes saying, don't engage with that at all. It's not worth your time, from people who are more successful than I am. And I have adopted what John is doing. I have a harder time offline letting go of the emotional hurt, I think, if it's one, but I'm getting better at it. Like, the longer I practice, nope, don't need to pay attention to that, the better and easier it gets to just go. And I think the hardest ones for me are when people are, spreading rumors, because you always hear about the rumors. So they're not openly doing anything. They spread rumors. And for me, I'm like, I need to engage because that's baloney and not true. And it's like, well, no, okay, here's how this looks. Nobody hears anything at all. 3 people over here have heard a rumor. The rest of the world has not heard the rumor, right? I engage publicly. What does that do? I'm the one who looks like an idiot. The people who spread rumors look stupid long term, even if 2 or 3 people are like, oh yeah, whatever, you know. So I have stopped engaging as best I can. And like if I see somebody here accusing us of being fascist again, which used to happen on this live stream all the time, yeah, I just block them. I just block them.
Think about when somebody says something shitty, okay? And I come back and snap back at them. And then I'm waiting to see them. So I pull my phone out later. I'm like, did he answer? Did he answer? Yeah. Right? How many times are you looking to fight that fight? And when he finally says something, you blast back. But your attention span is unfocused and it's magnetic. It draws to this thing, right? So if I just cut the head off of that snake right away, it frees my day up to move where I need to move.
Yeah.
Yeah. See, I wanted to get your guys' take on that because everybody deals with it a little bit differently. And that's how I deal with it. I don't engage trolls at all. I have not done that one time. Now, there are people who I want to make an example of because they say something that's clearly ridiculous and you give a response that makes them look small. And then I'll pin that comment so everybody sees that first in the feed. I've done that on a few occasions, but I don't engage with people who are looking to have an argument or looking to grandstand or looking to say something in a way that's not in any way constructive. I can take criticism if it's put to me in the right way, and I will accept that, but I won't accept somebody coming on the channel or engaging on my page, on my social media account, being an asshole. And so YouTube actually has a very brilliant feature, and I don't know if people are aware of this.
Imagine if they used it.
Yeah, it's called hide user from channel. So if you go over in the comment and you click on those 3 dots, it says hide user from channel. And what that winds up doing is it basically shadow bans that person. So you'll never see them again, nor will anybody else ever see them again. But yet they're still going to interact with your channel thinking that people are seeing what they're saying. So the brilliant part about that is you still get their clicks, right? They're still clicking on your video. You're getting any of their watch time. You're getting all of the benefit of that person being an asshole, but nobody ever has to hear them. They're screaming to themselves. So that's how I deal with them. And I deal with them when I see them. They're just, like you say, they're vapored because I got more important shit to do.
The perfect social media platform would be only that, right? If you don't like what I'm saying, you block me. If I don't like what you're saying, I block you. I cannot rally my friends to go bombard your channel and get your channel shut down. That shouldn't even be a thing, right? If you don't like it, don't interact with it. What we used to do when somebody would come on acting a fool, I would highlight their name. We'd build a discount code. You'd get 10, 20% off, right? And to use the code, you would use Joe Schmo, whatever his name was, and you would tag him. You would have to tag him on social media. Hey, I just posted this. I just made this order. I used your name as a discount code. And they would highlight and tag him. We would bombard a guy's page to the point he would have to turn his page off or make it private. And we used to do that. And I would do that, especially on a Friday, Saturday, Sunday. And I would boost that post on Facebook for $2,000 every day. So I would spend, it's actually $5,000, $2,000, $3,000. And we'd spend $10,000 boosting a post. And then guys would tag this dude. Most of them wouldn't, but I mean, a percentage would enough. But we would make $20,000 or $30,000 over the weekend doing it that we would not have made. So it was of benefit. Now they lock your page down for bullying, harassing. The algorithm doesn't work like it used to work. So we've just abandoned it. We've gone years just kind of ignoring it. And now I just do like you said. We block you if we can block you, which is Instagram and Facebook. And then we hide user on YouTube. And if that person, because they'll come back the next day and they're like, well, you misunderstood me or whatever. You're never going to get that. There's never going to be that separation. Once you're gone, we never know that you're there anymore. You just have zero access to us any longer.
Yeah. Yeah. It's the best way to go because what they're looking for is they're looking for some form of attention, whether that be in a positive way or a negative way. They're looking for some kind of attention, either from yourself to get you riled up or to make a point or make a statement or draw attention upon themselves. And I'm just not going to go there because I've got far more important things to do than let somebody get in my headspace about, oh, they said this about, this, or I need to defend that. I'm not going to just worry about it. It's like, oh, see you later,
Yeah.
So,
And if they were doing it, if they meant well, right, if they're really doing it for your benefit, they're not going to do it out in public. They're going to back channel and be like, hey, bro, you might not be aware of this. This is, ABC.
Right.
You're never going to correct. You're not going to correct somebody in public ever and say that you're doing it out of love.
Yeah. Yeah.
But you get a lot of attention when you correct them in public.
Yeah. And what's gained by it. It's amazing.
Yeah. Well, and you look at how politicians handle that stuff, right? Like, how does Joe Biden handle being called a poopy head in public? He just lets them call him a poopy head and goes on with his life. And if there's ever some critique, like he's senile or whatever it is, the people who think that, and they're not going to change their mind. So whenever they respond to that accusation, they're not responding to the people putting it out there. They're responding in such a way to keep his base happy with him.
I like the way.
So when they're communicating about that, they're communicating to them, not to the people who think he's senile.
I like the way Elon Musk does it. Prove it. What's your evidence? Support it. Biden has no cognition. He doesn't know what's being said to him. His handlers say some shit. I mean, he can barely read the card that he's reading.
You mean that's not him typing on Twitter?
But when you had, Elon Musk was in an interview a couple of weeks ago, and whoever he was there with said, what's his Twitter is so much more suppressed and it's so much more radical and it's uninclusive. And he's like, well, can you give me an example of it? And the dude wouldn't even have the conversation because it's just some shit. It's just a talking point. There's not any evidence of it. And if there was, the dude would have been able to cite a couple of them.
And a good reporter would be able to do that. So it's interesting. Not having your headspace distracted when you find yourself growing is also important. So I am glad people reached out to me on that one because I was about to go the other way on it.
What do you mean?
Just I was about to be more engaged in responding to trolls because it was pissing me off. And like two or three people reached out and they were like, don't do that. And then, meanwhile, Hollow Roast has doubled and there's a lot more roasting to do. And I was like, you're right. I should go into my shack, blast some punk music and knock some orders out and just forget about it.
Jack Spirko has a pretty high threshold tolerance for that. He gets these dudes on there that say stuff. And I'm like, man, why doesn't he just blast that guy out of there?
Because he can.
But his audience is large also, right? Joe Rogan will say, don't ever get in the comments. Don't ever read the comments. Don't ever interact with the comments. And I actually do read my comments. And I try to interact with the first day's worth of comments anyway, at least. Mm-hmm. And I try to heart and thumbs up all the comments because that's interaction. I know when I've been on big YouTube channels and left comments, I get a notification when they heart that comment, right? I appreciate the interaction. I appreciate somebody acknowledging that it was seen. So I feel that it's beneficial, especially when you're starting your channel and you still can do that. I think that it just puts a stronger bond with the viewer.
Yeah, that's true. Also, if you heart the comment, it comes out of your unread comments list on YouTube, which
I never
like clearing my inbox, man.
Yeah, we can't even look at that thing. We've got so much content going up.
Yep. So Porterhouse, what's your next step? You're monetized now. Are you adding additional ways of building prosperity into your content business?
Yeah, I don't know. That's definitely all things are on the table. I don't have anything specifically like, hey, I'm working on this right now and I'm, going to be doing a Patreon or I'm going to be doing this or I'm going to be doing that. All of those things are things that I've considered. I don't want to try to overwhelm myself with trying to do everything all at once because as you guys both know, putting out content it's work, no matter how you do it or how much you're doing, it takes a part of what you're doing away. So I don't want to overwhelm myself and I want to try to pace myself as it relates to that. So specifically to answer your question, I don't have anything that I'm moving toward in a serious way in like definite, but I mean, I'm looking at maybe developing some kind of merch, or maybe potentially a Patreon or some sort of a thing like that potentially. But again, I don't want to put the horse before the cart. I want to just be able to be consistent in the content that I'm delivering, and hoping that people will, you know, derive value in what I'm doing.
And you're in a position where you have some other income, right? You don't have to live off of this.
Right.
So it's a little different. Somebody who's trying to leave their job and use this as part of the income to be able to leave the job. You actually worked a job, and you're in a position where you still have an income without actually having to go to work. So your position, you have more choices. You can definitely do that.
Yeah, I feel very fortunate in that regard. And, you know, I was talking a little bit with Nicole about that before we went on, about just time management, you know, and I have a lot more hours in a day than the average person to go around here and tend to my garden, and to plant things, and to work on compost, and work on projects on my property, because I don't have to commit to 8 hours a day and then come home and try to feed the chickens and put the kids to bed and do all these sort of things. I'm an empty nester that's been retired since 2015. So I understand the benefits that I have in doing that. And like I say, I just want to pick and choose kind of the direction that I'm going. I don't want to overwhelm myself with trying to, you know, become this, you know, huge entity as far as the content creation and bringing in additional revenue. I do think it's important to look at doing some of those things. You know, I mentioned this last night. We Rebecca started making soap, right? Seems like a very simple and innocuous addition to what we're doing here on the property. But anything that we can do to be a producer rather than a consumer is of value. And so whether or not we actually wind up putting something like that on our website to sell to people as, you know, possible revenue generator, it's something that takes it out of the hands of somebody else and puts it upon ourselves. So we're just kind of picking and choosing and trying to, you know, move the ball forward in a like a methodical way, and doing things that are beneficial to not only ourselves, but our inner circle, and, you know, to one extent or another, the greater circle of our influence, you know. Sounds
a lot like lifestyle design.
Yeah. I don't know. I don't want to be too stressed in retirement, man. You know, I work a lot. I work around here like all day long. I'm doing stuff on the property. And that's a kind of a departure from where I was in 2015, where I basically retired, and it was like, hey, let's go hang out and play and travel and do some things, and get rid of all the keys that I had on my key ring, try to get as few keys on my key ring as possible, you know, just get it down to, you know, 3 or 4 keys, instead of having this big ass key ring with all these doors that you needed to unlock every day. And so we took that approach, but, you know, things have changed. And, but then they've also changed yet again after 2020. Things kind of came into a little bit clearer focus, and we needed to reinvigorate what we were doing around here, you know, previously. And I feel very fortunate because we were able to just basically flip the switch. It wasn't like some people whose the light bulb came on where they were like, you know, oh man, crap, I got to start doing all these things. I'm freaking out about what's happening. And they're starting at ground zero. We weren't doing that. So we were very fortunate. I understand. But yeah, I don't know. We're taking it one step at a time.
Yeah, I love the people in our network who have seen the need for helping people where the light bulb went off after 2020. And not only are they wanting to grow food on the homestead, but they never cooked from scratch before in their life. Like, there's a lot of stuff to learn along that way. And they are setting up, advising businesses, saying, okay, let's set your goals and go make a stepwise plan, so you do one thing at a time rather than try to do everything at one time and lose your mind. Yeah. Because every one of those skills that's required along that journey, even starting with rotating your stuff through and storing things and using the things you store, every one of those things that seems second nature to someone who's done it for 15 years isn't the first time you do it. And so if you do 50 of those at one time, it gets very hectic.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah,
I'm not going to say my homestead is not hectic, because it's totally hectic, but in a different way.
Yeah, I'm sure you guys hear from a lot of people who are, dealing and grappling with some of those issues as it relates to being overwhelmed and wanting direction on where to go and how to get started and all these sort of things. And it's just one of those things that you got to take it a step at a time, and you have to look and see what are your weaknesses and focus on those weaknesses one step at a time. You can't look at other people who have been doing this for a number of years and have positioned themselves in a way that makes them look like, oh, hey, they're all squared away. And they may be to some extent, but somebody has to start somewhere, and you just take a small bite of that apple, a day at a time, and things eventually start to come into focus, And I think one of the biggest things that I would tell people is pay attention to what's happening, but don't allow it to consume your focus, because there's so much distraction out there with regard to the news media and the things that are happening on a daily basis. Most of that shit is never going to amount to anything for you. So don't focus on it. Just know what your gaps are, know what your deficiencies are, and work every day toward filling those,
Yeah, if you want to do something and you say that you don't have time, all you have to do is turn this off. You'll have a lot of time.
Yeah. Yeah, that's super true. That is absolutely super true.
For real. I mean, why, if anything was happening outside of war, right, within arm's reach, anything happens off this property, the only way I'm going to know it is from this.
Mm-hmm.
So if there's not a cloud of, acid moving this way, it doesn't affect me, right? If there's a fire coming, I'm going to see it. If there's a storm, I'm going to hear it. All I have to do is turn this off.
Yeah. I must have a pretty boring channel, because I don't talk about the news of the day. I don't give the latest and greatest every day and give people a synopsis of, the world events. And so it must be pretty boring, I suppose, for people, but I know that there's enough channels out there doing that's not something I necessarily really want to try to focus on. I want people to be empowered by what they can do for themselves, because focusing on those issues that they can't do a goddamn thing about, that's not helping them in any way. All it's doing is getting them spun up. And I understand that draws clicks and it draws subscribers and it draws revenue, but there's plenty of channels that are out there doing that. And
but those channels will never come back from that, right? It's like using cleavage for your thumbnail and your prepper channels. If you watch during the beginning of COVID, you had channels that went from 10, 15,000 shot up to hundreds of thousands, but that's all they do now, right? It's just the fear news, right? There's not any actionable in most of it. It's a 30-minute, hour-long. These are the things. Oh my God, this is what I think, even though I have no interaction, nothing real input. But that's what people tune in for. And I call it, that's a stepping stone, right? Guys are constantly like, what do you think of this channel? What do you think of that channel? Well, it got you here. So now let's do something real, right? Now something made you change, right? You got out of the city or whatever. And now we're able to tell you about our show or about Jack's show. And what do you want to do, right? What do you think is most immediately to cause you danger or be of concern, right? Well, how do we address that, right? Do you have a garden? Do you grow any food? Do you have some kind of way to make natural fertilizers, right? Do you have rabbits? And then we can have those conversations. And then we have events where you can come and actually see those things, like for real. Like you're not sure how to do it? Come here. We'll show you how easy it is to do it. Here it is. This is it being done.
Right.
Yeah, it's funny, John. This year, more people just wanted to tour the things and interact with them at my thing than wanted to go to sessions per se. Because every time I say, hey, who wants to walk up a super steep hill really far and look at sheep?
Yep.
A bunch of people did.
Husband and wife just came here middle of the week and they're like, hey, I know you guys are, busy. Can we see the swales? And we walk the property, right? Mm-hmm. Because those property walks turn into so many conversations. We just hit up a guy moved in about a year ago, and he came in here and he'd actually offered to volunteer at SRF, and I never saw him show up. And I hit him up the other day and I said, "Hey, do you need eggs? I've got some eggs." He's like, "Yeah, we'd love some eggs." So they came over and we stood for 3 hours and talked. And we talked about his fencing and his dogs and how something's eating all his chickens, right? So it's good. Like, these people moved from Florida, came from Nashville, and, they're very close here. So we can go over and look at their stuff and be like, "Hey, this is how we did it. This is what we're doing. All your problems go away with some fencing. We put in fencing and you need a couple of dogs." And then everything that you've told me for the last 2 hours that is of concern, all those issues go away with just 2 dogs, proper dogs.
Our dogs are doing a great job with the armadillo invasion of 2023 in the Holler Homestead.
Are they killing them?
Just walk. I was like, "There's another dead one."
Good. Yeah, ours are slaying possums all of a sudden.
Yeah.
What kind of dogs do you have, Nicole?
I have Anatolian Pyrenees mix with the sheep, and then we have Blue Heeler mix, and I have 2 mutts. One's a mountain cur. We have trained the 3 here who are more pets than anything to not like varmints at all. And so they are trained to run and bark and execute if they catch it. Here, I don't know in a coyote fight what they would do, really. I know my Anatolian Pyrenees mix have already killed a coyote, so that's why they're out with the sheep.
Yeah, cool. That's something I might consider doing at some point. I haven't done that yet, but it's not out of the question as far as doing something with some dogs. Yeah, because now that I have a few sheep, they're going to need a little bit more protection. I am running them just specifically in a sheep tractor right now, but that requires a certain level of daily interaction, moving that and, everything daily. So just one more thing to do around here. And if you've got the time to do it, it's okay. But I mean, at least this way I can run them in specific areas where I want to manage my pasture. And as well, they're pretty damn secure in this tractor that I built. So I'm going to be having go ahead.
Do you have mountain lions or bears where you're at?
Bears, no. Mountain lions, they've been seen. I've never seen one on our property, but that's not to say that they don't come around at night when, they do their thing. But I don't specifically think we have a huge population of mountain lions around here. Coyotes, yes, we have them every night. I hear them. And they come around and kill cats and kill everything else they can get a hold of. So I need to make sure that my infrastructure is pretty secure. And I've been able to do that with my chickens. And now with my sheep, I feel pretty comfortable about the tractor that they're in.
Cool.
There's a comment here. I'd like to take a property walk the next SRF I go to. I realized at last SRF that what we needed to do was say, this is the time that the property walk is going to happen rather than wait for people to ask for it. Just so that it purposely gets done. So that's what I want to see at the next one.
Show up a day early.
Show up 2 days early and take the 0 to Hero radio operator class.
Yep.
Hey, I bought a tank.
Go ahead.
I bought a tank from Tank Depot on your.
Perfect. Did you talk to them?
Yeah. Well, I didn't talk to them about specifically any kind of a discount as far as from the channel's perspective, but I did get a discount on that tank. I got a 3,000 gallon tank, and they knocked it down to $2,100. And of course, I had to have tax added onto that. So by the time I got that and $100 delivery fee, it was like $2,400. So
$100 is nothing though to move that thing. That's awesome.
Yeah. So that should be here within probably the next week or so. I'm pretty excited about that, and I've got all my water trenched from the project that I started last fall all the way down to that site. And there's the pad already poured and everything that I'm just going to go ahead and plop that thing down and start filling it up. But that'll be kind of a nice thing to have, is just additional water storage, because redundancy in that regard is pretty huge, I think.
Now build a series of 6 videos, right? This is the slab. Here's the tank being delivered. Here's how we're putting it in. This is where we're going to capture the water from. Here's the first flush that we actually used from Tank Depot also. And then send it to them and be like, hey, here's 6 videos, guys. How about an affiliate link?
Yeah. Not a bad idea. It's
a great idea. John always pops out one of these every video we do. It's always fun to see what happens when people do it.
Yeah, John's got those business ideas down, man. That's the way to do it for sure.
It's his secret sauce.
I think the podcast we did was really good. I went back and actually watched that when you had posted it. And I thought that was good, man. There was some good interaction on there. I had some good comments on my video of us together, and we had spoken about Tank Depot in there. So that's awesome that you reached out to them.
Yeah, I had no idea that even existed, and it's really there's one of those Tank Depots not that far from here. So I was like, oh, there's one in the area. So I just drove up there, and we were actually up there yesterday making the purchase, and then. I'm excited to get some things moved forward that I've set out as goals. That's one. And the other is, solar. And there's a solar contractor close by that's the guys actually come out to the house and seemed like a good interaction. I spoke with him for about an hour and I told him what I wanted to do. And he's like, yeah, I'll draw you up some plans and you can do most of the work, blah, blah, blah. And I'll give you some, and I've been having I'm done dealing with him because I don't have time to keep going back saying, hey man, are you going to help me out? So obviously he doesn't want my business. So I got to move on and go to greener pastures because that is not going to work out with that dude. But that's something that is on the
dude, get with Sean Mills. They just did an install at Nicole's.
Yeah.
They just did an install at Nicole's. It is so clean. It is so clean, man. And you can expand the panels and you can expand the battery. They're just units that you pop in place. Man, we looked at this. I can't tell you how clean this install was. And it's badass. And you can expand it as you need to.
Yeah, it cost about $5,000. And we did most of the work, right? So that doesn't include the work, but that's nothing compared to what it was going to cost me like 5 years ago to do the same thing.
Right. I want to do most of the work. I just need somebody to help design how I need to switch over from these string inverters into hybrid inverters and, capturing my own energy with my own battery system, getting that all designed so that it's up to spec. I don't have that knowledge. I'd be, not to say I couldn't learn it, but I've got more important shit to do with my time. I can put it in or whatever, dig the trenches and do all the legwork to cut down costs. But I just need somebody to assist me with that because that's a big priority of mine. I think that's super important, especially where we live, with the power safety shutoffs and all that crap. Just tired of it, man. Just tired of having my power shut off and being inconvenienced to have to go out and set the generator up and do all this stuff that's totally unnecessary if you're just, sufficient on your own, energy needs.
Man, I guarantee Sean Mills could probably do that just with photos and short video clips, and he'll be out here at SRF. You'll see it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I'll show you a picture of the roof.
Yeah, right on. I did talk to Sean a little bit about it when I was there in October and he was there. I talked to him a little bit about, some stuff, and I didn't talk to him last time that, I was out there, but
there it is.
Oh, right on. Right on.
So that's what's on the roof. That's not what's in the utility closet, but those panels are bifacial, so they can go from 460 to 560 watts per panel, which is pretty cool.
So is this a hybrid system or is it completely off grid or what is it?
So there is power to this outbuilding, which is a guest cabin from my house. And I didn't cut that off, but we put a sub panel inside and the sub panel is run from a battery bank, and the battery bank can be charged by those. When those aren't giving enough, it will automatically switch to power from the grid to keep them topped off. And if the power goes out, I can plug a generator in. Basically, I have a generator plug for that if I'm not getting enough off of the solar.
Right.
And I wanted that, and to make sure there was no way it could backfeed into the power grid, so that for the same reason you do, right? You don't want to have to not have power off your functioning solar panels because a windstorm blew out your power in the area, which happens more and more where you are, right?
Well, they actually just shut the power off because they're preemptively trying to avoid more lawsuits because they've had so many power lines come down during high wind events that have caused these major conflagrations. And, PG&E has been sued by all of the insurance companies and everybody else who's lost lives in these fires out here, that they've just decided, along with Southern California Edison down in the Southland. And Southern California Edison's been doing this long before PG&E got the idea, because they had all those fires back when I was still working. We had huge fires down in Southern Cal that massive loss of life, massive property damage. So they actually preemptively just shut the power off when they know that the winds are going to be blowing a certain, miles per hour, and the humidity is going to be a certain, however low. And so I'm just tired of dealing with that. I think it's one of those things that I've identified in my own life as a deficiency, because having the ability to walk and flip a switch on is a nice thing, but it sucks when somebody else is holding that over your head. And I think we get very comfortable with just being a part and attached to the system. And when the system, you realize, isn't necessarily working on your behalf, you need to take it upon yourself to remove yourself from the areas in which you have concern. And energy is a big one for me. Energy and water are huge things. And so I don't want to be without a well that has run dry, and I don't have the ability to provide for my livestock and or my family. So I need redundancies in my system. And that's what I'm looking at trying to focus on, because what does that do? It just builds more freedom into your life, right?
Yep.
So
we intend to use solar to power the small outbuildings and certain things in the building, right? If big power goes out, we're not operating this. So we don't need to tie it in and be able to feed everything in here and worry about cutting circuits on and off. And then as far as I've been really looking at these biodigesters. There's some guys doing some amazing stuff out of Africa that are putting out huge content, and you get these biodigesters, and you can literally use anything in there that will break down, but they're using specifically, they have trays under their chickens, and they take that chicken poop. You could use human feces also, and you make a slurry that looks like a wet mortar, and you fill it into this pipe that the digester sits on top of, and it travels to the back, and then it breaks down, and as it gases, it creates all that gas that you see bubbling in a pond and stuff, that swamp gas, but it captures it, and you don't really have to pressurize it. Gas is so light that it moves. And these systems come with a burner. You can pipe it, 20 feet away, whatever, into a building. It's a double burner stove, basically. And they're cooking on these things, and they're heating their hot water with these things. And then what comes out the other end is so broken down that they're using it for fertilizer, and they're actually using it in drip irrigation on plants that they're harvesting and using, immediately. It's a pretty cool system, man. And some of these systems start with the whole included system. They've got multiple sizes, but they start at like a couple grand up to 10 grand. Like they're doing whole children's orphanages and stuff off of these things, and schools. It's pretty wild. I'll send you some links on them. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, it's producing methane gas.
Yep, and methane doesn't explode.
You know, it's interesting because there's so much that can be done harnessing just natural processes, and it doesn't seem to rise to the level of getting the amount of research or money thrown at it to make it actually work, because it's so counter to the institutions that already exists. The lobbyists that work for these corporations like PG&E and Southern California Edison and every other, they're not going to allow certain things like that to come and rise to that level that competes with them.
As a matter of fact, they're going to knock on your door and ticket you and fine you and send dudes with guns if they find out that you are doing some of those things. Yeah,
it's pretty crazy. Like when you get into and you start looking at earth ships and how those have been built and how just incredibly efficient they are, and to realize that they're not allowing people, not making it mandatory in a state like, say, California, that's so green and so energy conscious. They're not even allowing you to do that because of the lobbying, and the industry won't allow it. When those houses are completely safe and they're almost like running on their own. They're recycling their own water like 4 times. They're built into the hill where they're just totally this thermally efficient structure. And it's just amazing to see that sort of thing is being discouraged rather than encouraged. But yet the message that we get is like, we need to move toward all this green energy crap. Stop eating meat, get rid of your livestock. But hey, buy these electric vehicles and buy all this technology that you have to wind up plugging into something that's going to support it from a coal factory.
It's all by design.
It's just it's an interesting thing when you start to like dig deeper into the reasons why certain things happen, but more people than not don't. They just say, oh, it's green energy. We're going to let's get an electric car. Let's get a Prius or a Tesla because it's good for the environment. No, it's good for people's pocketbooks is what it is.
Yeah.
And there's so many other ways to go that aren't being explored. And when you look into it, you're going, man, that really just makes a lot of sense. But
when you look at the more even insidious aspect of that, all those electric cars, I mean, they can turn them off, and they can turn my Toyota off right now. My Toyota messages me when I'm at 4,500 miles and tells me, hey, you're 500 miles away from needing a service. It knows exactly how many miles I have. It's communicating. You ever heard of OnStar? It's been around like 20 years. They can turn your shit off right from OnStar. So you'd be silly to think they can't now. But I mean, they turned off all the Teslas in Russia. As soon as Ukraine happened, they pulled that switch and turned all those cars off.
Yeah. Yeah.
To me, watching the corporate environmental movement ruin actual environmentalism has been very frustrating, because I do care about pollution and I do care about the earth, and to watch it like deprioritize things that are working and prioritize things that are making money that are doing the opposite of helping the situation it's frustrating. And then I'm the one who's called not the environmentalist, have to get my ego involved there, right? Like, screw you guys,
Well, it's all bullshit, the electric car thing, right? How much diesel does it take to make the electric car? How much diesel does it take to make the electricity to pump into the electric car? It's an absolute wreck. But it's really, it's not for the environment. If they were worried about the environment, we wouldn't be doing all this bullshit. Mm-hmm. It's like everybody's out, banning wood. How much damage does it really do to burn wood? I don't know the answer to that, but we can burn wood here, and we don't have anybody knock on our door and say, hey, you can't burn wood. In California, there's not been a home built in the last 30 years, at least in the big cities. I don't know about where you're at, but all your condos and all that stuff, all those chimneys, they can't even burn wood. There's not even a real chimney there. They're just natural gas. So if that turns off or something happens like you saw happen in Texas, there's nothing coming through there. And they don't have any means in that fireplace to even burn wood inside a home to heat it. It just doesn't exist.
There are places like that in Cali for sure, where there's cities that are, mandating certain things or outlawing certain things. And, that's just the direction of the way things are going. They've done away with certain, gas powered things. And, a few years ago, it was the LED incandescent light bulbs, and now now it's all LED. You can't buy an actual light bulb here. It's all LED. So it's just one of those things that's incrementalism, and they're phasing out a lot of the things that they're moving people toward. And it's just mission creep, really, from the standpoint of totalitarians. They're just further pushing the cart down the road, and people just kind of see it, and that's, I complain about it, but they don't do anything about it. And then by the time the next generation gets around, it's just business as usual. Hey, we're eating bugs now. Cool, man. Right. Bug sandwich, right?
They don't even know it. Yeah, Snowpiercer, back of the train, eating the bug stew stuff. California banned all small gas motors for lawn equipment, right? All gas, small generators. I don't know what they're going to do. And I mean, we hear that here. I don't know what that really means in San Diego. I would assume they have to have some gasoline generators on these job sites where they're starting up, where there's no power pole.
Yeah, they'll probably jam you up in some of these suburbs and cities and stuff that are really like super Nazi about that. But like here, I mean, it's business as usual. Nothing's changed. The only thing that has changed is when you go to Home Depot, you go down the aisle where there's like selling all the push mowers, right? And there's like 15 different electric ones,
Yeah.
And there's like one gas one or one, maybe two gas ones that they're selling. And that's only because that's inventory that's already here. Right.
Yeah.
They're just trying to offload all the shit that's already, on pallets and books and coming off barges or whatever. But the rest of it is all coming in is electric. And at some point in 5 years, you won't see an electric generator here. You won't see, those sort of things will happen. So I don't know. I don't know where we go from there, but
yeah, you could buy a Briggs and Stratton or Honda motor gas mower starting at $250. You get a really nice one for about $5. I'm sure the prices are coming down on electric, but I looked at the Milwaukee because I have a lot of Milwaukee batteries, and that thing's $1,400, and it takes 2 batteries inside, and the batteries are $250 a piece, and it doesn't come with the batteries. So I mean, the prices are still pretty high on those things.
Yeah, they are expensive. I mean, there's plenty of gas stuff here. It hasn't changed that dramatically, quite honestly, but you can see the phasing out of certain things that we have had before, and they're bringing in the new technology. You can go down to Harbor Freight and there's not like electric anything. It's all just, sweet gas powered stuff like you would ordinarily, get anywhere else. But it's interesting.
Yeah, soon Californians will have to drive over the border to buy their lawnmowers.
You're gonna have to smuggle your lawnmower like you smuggle your fireworks.
Yeah, man.
Because the way they ban that is usually the sale of it, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
You just won't be able to buy it.
They can intervene. Yeah.
You just won't be able to buy it. And then, the places that are in the cities, of course, living next to your neighbor, that's going to like call up the authorities and say, hey, this person's running a gas powered thing, and then they'll have someone knocking on your door and it'll just be the end of that.
It's always your own people. And it's usually somebody that you consider to be, have something in common with you. If you want to see who's, the biggest enforcer of chicken regulations, it's usually the people in the chicken groups or the rabbit groups. Those are the first people to tell you how you're doing it wrong. Somebody that has something in common with you. It's always what it is. And then they'll incentivize somebody to tell on you as well.
Yeah. Yeah. I've got a lot of opinions, as I'm sure all of us do, right? We all have our own deeply held beliefs on how things should be done. And we think when we're doing it the right way. But I think the difference that I try to always bring to the table is that even though I think the way that I'm doing it's probably the right way, I just look at it as it's the right way for me. Yeah. And if you are doing it in some way that's different, then more power to you. I'm not here to necessarily try to tell you you're wrong or to change your opinion on how you should do it, because I understand there's so many different ways that we can do things. And I don't know. I see a lot of people who get very opinionated about, oh, you're doing it wrong with composting, or you're doing, chickens should be this, and it's just like, those are almost the people that I just don't have time to try to deal with nicely. I don't know. I don't have time for that.
So we still have farms here, like real ones. You just drive down the road and there's animals out in the field in the snow. And people lose their minds. Yeah,
they call that as animal abuse.
Calling the sheriff, calling the animal control. It's absolutely just crazy. What do you think you're going to do with these cows? Like, I think they really think, like, what do you think the deer do in the winter? We don't put those in barns. Like, that's not how that works. And like we for years, I'd spend about $600 every year on straw to put inside dog kennels and chicken coops, right? So they could have some insulation and some barrier. All those animals are out in the snow, right? They never use that stuff. It's just expensive stuff for them to poop on. But it's wild, man. People really do, and they will spend especially like the garden. I'm in these square foot and raised bed gardening groups because I just think they're so pretty when these gardens are set up and everything's uniform and straight. And man, get somebody new in there and they're like, I bought a truckload of Miracle-Gro, and there'll be 1,000 comments about how Miracle-Gro's the devil. But this is this person's first time growing a garden, right? Use the Miracle-Gro, suck the life out of it. Next year, add some compost or rabbit manure and revitalize. Use it
recover.
As medium. Yeah. I wonder how many people just get turned away from that and never look back because just people were assholes to them on the internet.
I think a large part of why some of that thing exists today. And we're seeing probably more of it now. For one, we're seeing more of it because we have more access to seeing what people are really like when they're given a device where they can interact in some way that's anonymous. So we're getting a chance to see that, but we're also, I think people's perception of how animals should be treated is skewed in some way based upon the Instagramification of what people see of livestock. You know, when you've got chickens that are on Instagram running around with fucking bows in their hair, right? And they're
like the T-Rex arms.
Yeah, they're people in house, you know, they got chickens in houses and stuff. And I get it, man. That's fine. If you want to have a pet, that's cool. If it's a chicken, I'm cool with that. I don't care. Yeah. But it's like when you raise your animals a certain way and you've done so for many years, and that's what their intended purpose is to provide a function on your property. It's not because you want this to be a chicken retirement home and you process them out at a certain age when they're no longer productive.
2 years,
somehow that's a fucking problem for people. And I think it's just the Instagramification of, you know, the industry, quite honestly, you know. So it's a trip.
It's the mob mentality, right? They're able to say some negative shit without a repercussion. You saw the same thing with the masks, right? You'd be in a grocery store and some crazy Kool-Aid hair person with a costume would come beelining across the store to tell you how you're endangering their life, but you weren't anywhere near them, right? It's not about endangering their life. It's about they have some perception of power, and this mask gives them some kind of the ability to be anonymous. And then in the beginning, you just have these loons that would pile on. So it's not just them standing there with a pitchfork. It's multiples of them. And you still see it when you're out. You still see the costumes sometimes when you're out in public. I just know that we know what that is, right? Just avoid that, right? It's got the coexist sticker and all the weirdo shit on our car. We just, your costume very clearly shows us what you are.
Yeah, it's interesting. I was actually in Tractor Supply just like 2 days ago, and there was a whole family that came in and they had all their shit on, costume. Right? Yeah, their whole regalia. And I was just like, man, this is kind of fucking weird. People haven't been doing that here for a long time. And, you know, you occasionally see the one person or whatever that's like, you know, but the mom was standing there and this was kind of a younger family, young kids. Like there was probably 6 of them.
Well, you know what it was?
In the family. Oh, it's fucking weird is what it was.
but it's probably it's a relocation, right? It's somebody who is awakening and they're like, hey, stuff's pretty bad in San Diego. We can still stay in crazy ass California, but let's go north where we have some more freedom. But they can't quite let go because if you have lived that way for years and you've done all the absolutely crazy shit, if you let go of it, it means what you did was wrong.
Yeah. Nobody likes to admit they're wrong.
Yeah, I think there's a big part of that too, where people, you know, we don't like to admit we invest into the things we believe. And it's like the person who buys something, right? And then they get it home and they realize, fuck, I really don't like these jeans, or I really don't like these shoes or whatever. They don't fit right. But you try to sell yourself in your mind that, oh, well, you know, it's like that in a sense, because you don't want to admit that, man, the things that I was doing was like ridiculous and kind of out there. But the
hardest thing about freedom is knowing what's none of your business and practicing it. Yeah. And that goes back to you have an opinion about how things should be, but I get control of how things should be in my life.
Yeah.
Whether you like it or not. And as long as everybody is really firm on that's none of my business thing, it works. It's when people try to make it their business how you raise your chicken, or if you leave your LGDs in the pasture in the snow all winter long. Yeah.
I don't care that your dog is in your baby carrier, right? I don't give a shit that you carry it around, cute, whatever. But you don't get to say what I do.
Yeah. And that's where you find people who are coming to the freedom mindset run into the biggest problem, because the first time they come up against something where they want to be able to tell somebody what to do. There you go. Yeah. Don't take drugs.
Yeah, voluntarism is a beautiful thing, really. and I just think that it's everybody's right to voluntarily interact and to live their life according to how it best suits them. And I think if more people had that impression and realization, the world would like be a little bit more harmonious, and you wouldn't have to get into other people's shit to tell them how to live their life. You know?
Yeah. If you have time to worry about what I'm doing,
Yeah.
then obviously you have too much time.
Yeah. Yeah. I said this just the other day, so people may have heard it if they've heard me talk before, but back when I was running an inmate camp, I had a pretty skilled artisan inmate come through, and I wound up having him paint a lot of murals and stuff in some of the buildings, and over the chow hall. In the chow hall, I had him to paint this nice big mural on a couple of walls, and right over where the inmates came through with their trays, it had a saying, just a little slogan that said, "Discipline yourself so others don't have to." And I think that if everybody lived according to that, where you just were responsible for yourself, take care of yourself and that of your children, right?
Yep.
That would be the world being a better place, and just respect others and allow others to have opinions that differ from yours, and have meaningful debate without fucking argument. But I think we've seen so much degradation of that mindset, given the fact that we've got Twitter and we've got some of these other platforms where people can come on and just spew hate. And it's like, it just makes me feel dirty. I don't even go on that platform, to be honest. I got on there a few years ago, and I was on the thing for a minute, and I was like, man, what am I doing, man? This is making me feel like shitty. Why am I interacting like this with people and saying things that are just counter to like anything? So I don't know.
Did you run hotshot crews?
No, I wasn't a Fed. I worked for the state of California with California Department of Forestry. We're a wildland firefighting agency predominantly. So we work a lot with shot crews and, out on wildland fires and stuff. But no, those are good dudes. The shots are good dudes. And girls, they got girls on shot crews now, but they're hard workers, and they don't get paid. They don't get paid enough for what they do, quite honestly. They have a totally different mission than what we had. We had to protect state property, where they protected federal property. So our mission was quite different. We were a lot more aggressive, and we'd go in and we'd set up quick. We'd knock the fire out, and they kind of go in with the attitude of, hey, fire is good in the forest. We're going to kind of go in and assess it.
Got it.
Draw this huge ass fucking box and manage this fire. And it sometimes gets outside of that box, given enough time to develop,
Sometimes?
Yeah. They have a lot of issues with that, but I think it's also an important recognition that with regard to firefighting, and this is something that people don't understand, is that fire is a natural process. And so by us going in, as we've done for the last few hundred years, and putting fires out, we're fucking things up. And that's why you have these fires that are occurring now that are major, major problems, because the fuel loading is such that it's not being managed. And so you've got these forests that are just growing and growing and growing. And then we've got the encroachment of the population moving into the wildlands. And so what's going to happen when you actually get the alignment of the proper weather with a start of a fire? It's going to rip through there and burn like it should have burned many, many times over the last few hundred years, probably.
And a lot of them need fire to drop seed and reforest as well.
Yeah, all of that stuff's very important. I mean, we just had in our area, both sides of the valley rip off in the last like 3 or 4 years. I mean, just nuked it, but it needed to happen. And now you look up there and you wouldn't even hardly know there was a fire that occurred, because everything's growing back. It's what's supposed to happen. But
I always find it interesting that the state lands, when you compare them to the federal lands, forest health wise, almost every time the state land is healthier.
Yeah.
And I think that's because you have local influence, and they understand the unique biology of their area better than sort of a one size fit all policy. I don't know if that's, but yeah.
I do. I don't know. I just have a deeper appreciation. And I didn't necessarily have that when I first got into the agency. I just was aggressive and wanted to put fires out. But I also understand the need for allowing things to burn. It's what's supposed to happen. And
I know in Oregon they used to do controlled burns on state lands of the underbrush for the, you know, like, because they were trying to make it more reasonably mimic what was going on.
Yeah, there's just not enough of it happening, and therefore, when you see these fires burn through in the summertime, again, it's what is supposed to happen.
It's huge.
Yeah.
It's huge. It's. I didn't know we were going to talk about forest fires today.
Yeah, me neither. Who knew?
30-day reviews is a firefighter too, by the way. It says controlled burns need to be a thing. Cali needs to do before they have even a worse one. It's, I don't know. I noticed it when I was driving across Montana towards Washington State that it was just like beetle infested pine trees, just dead. And there was a stark line, and I was like, we just came into the state forest, didn't we? And there was the sign, state forest. And I thought, like, why are these pine, like, literally right here, pine trees on the state land, pine trees on the federal land, same pest that's supposedly invading, it's minimal damage on the state side. I was like, they've done something different there.
Yeah. We used to do a lot more prescribed burning when I first started in the agency. But, you know, over the course of time and just different environmental regulations and certain things that kind of restrict the amount of fires and the red tape that you have to jump through to get anything meaningfully burned, you know, and then you wind up going out for this thing that's like they're burning 100 acres. That ain't doing nothing, man. I mean, that's doing something on that 100 acres, but it's really not doing what it needs to happen, you know. So consequently, a lot of the work that gets done in the summer on an out of control fire. Like in a national forest, that's what happens. They wind up looking forward to that so that their forest can actually be managed as it should be. And they open up roads and all that stuff, all that underbrush gets burned. And it's just what should happen. But unfortunately, when you put people in harm's way, you wind up losing people occasionally. When you put people in these areas where all of a sudden the weather conditions change and something happens and somebody drops their guard down, and you wind up with loss of life and every other thing, you know.
Yeah, that's some intense stuff right there.
Yeah,
facing down a forest fire.
Yeah, that's a great job, man. I enjoyed it. It's a great career that I'm glad that I was able to have the opportunity to do, because it's just something's different all the time. You're always dealing with something different, you know. When the call comes in, you never know what it's going to be. Is it going to be a heart attack? Is it going to be a wreck? Is it going to be, you know, structure fire? Is it going to be a wildfire? You just don't know, and you don't know where you're necessarily going to be. So it's very kind of an adventurous job, because our jurisdiction was the entire state of California. And that was kind of cool because you could be anywhere. I mean, I fought fires all the way from San Diego to Humboldt and Modoc and everywhere in the state. And so that's just kind of a cool thing to have the ability to do. And I couldn't have really chosen a better career for myself. So glad to be done with it.
Yeah, you're like, but now I'm retired and I have a cool YouTube channel.
Yeah, I don't know. The further you move up in the agency too, you know, you wind up getting further away from what it was you signed up for. Yep. You know, you start getting behind a desk and you start managing things. And next thing you know, you're dealing with all kinds of personnel problems and dealing with going to meetings and bullshit, you know, and it's just like, fucking done with that. So.
Yep. Okay. Well, we're turning the corner on an hour and a half. Do we want to go once around the horn and say bid adieu to each other till next time? Sound good? Let's start with you, Porterhouse.
Yeah. Yeah. What do you want to know? I guess I'm Eric Porterhouse.
Promote your stuff, like whatever.
Oh yeah. No, we've got a channel, Porterhouse and Teal, and we talk about just what we're doing here on our property, which is, you know, trying to create things in a more regenerative way, trying to create things that make us a little bit more free here on our property by either livestock production or growing some food. And I basically kind of document some of those efforts on the channel. And yeah, we do have a website up, porterhouseandteal.com, and I can be reached at porterhouseandteal at gmail.com. Also, I'm going to be speaking down at the Kentucky Sustainable Living. They're putting on a brand new inaugural event in October, late October, and I'm going to be down there speaking, and where we're going to be putting in a plant guild, much the same as what we did when we were out at your event back in October. And so I'm going to be helping put on a class for that. So anybody looking forward to maybe getting down and seeing what that's all about, information will be forthcoming about that, but keep that in the back of your mind if you're looking out to get out to another event and meet people and be inspired by what others are doing. So
where in Kentucky is that? Do you know?
Bowling Green. Yeah.
Okay.
Holding it in Bowling Green. I think it's at Kentucky State University or something like that. So they've got this facility actually where it'll be indoors, so weather won't be an issue. And they're just trying to put things together. And I'm going to be going down to help out with that and some other folks that, yeah.
I think, what is that, October?
It's October
29th?
20. Yep, at 28th, 29th. And then the class is going to be on the Friday leading into it on the 27th.
So
and Chuck
weekend
will actually.
Kentucky Sustainable Living is a really cool network of people. You can join their group on Facebook, and they've been coming to SRF for a while. They've been doing some really cool classes there, so I'm super excited to see that they put that festival together.
Yeah,
and that'll be the weekend after Self-Reliance.
Yeah, I think it's 2 weekends after, maybe. It's the 28th.
Got it. Okay.
Yeah, it's 2 weekends after.
Cool.
Yep. Awesome. Okay, I'm going to go then you, John. I wanted to just point out, for those of you who've been waiting for the moment, that you can get your tickets for the Zero to Hero Radio Operator course on October 12th and 13th, which will be at Special Operations Equipment, run by Radio Made Easy. The tickets are up. Early bird rate is $545. That'll go up to $645 as we get closer to the event. It does include lunch on Thursday. I need to talk with them about if we do Friday or not. I think there's a special lunch project on Friday, but I don't want to reveal what that is. So that's there now. Just go to selfreliancefestival.com, click on tickets, and it's Zero to Hero Radio Operator course. I believe Eric is giving the test at the end, right? Evan, sorry, I said Eric because Porterhouse is there. Evan Dixon. So Evan's giving the test there too, so that you can get licensed on the way out. Anyway, check that out. John, it's up to you to close this today.
What's up, guys? I'm John Willis. You can find me everywhere at SOE Tactical Gear. I do a live every night at 9 o'clock on YouTube. I post every day almost on Instagram and Facebook, and I generally will see your messages there if you send them. So that's it.
All right.
All right, guys.
See you guys later.
See ya.